Welcome to the Investor Coaching Show. Here's your host, Paul Winkler.
All right, back here on the Investor Coaching Show. I'm Paul Winkler talking about the world of money and investing. PaulWinkler.com is the website. So let me just talk about something. Somebody asked me a question this week, and I was working on a video on this, but let me just kind of tell you the premise of what the video was, because I think it's a good question. And it was in general about 401ks. I don't really know what I've got, and I was like, no, that's not good. Now, in this particular case, we're the manager on the 401k, and what I like to do is I like to make sure that anybody in it, you know what's going on. And the reason being that if you don't know what's going on, you will never be happy about it. Now, as somebody that says, I never really quite got into it, never got into the education aspect of that, but now I want to know. And I was like, bravo for you wanting to know. 401k, what is, and this is more of a basic, what even is a 401k? And, the idea behind a 401k is that it's a pre-tax type of a program. And, you can have after-tax now, you can have Roth features in it, but I want to just explain the very first premise of a 401k and use that to help you understand how they work and what they are. So the idea is that you say, hey, I've got income right now that exceeds my level of expenses. So my income is above my expenses, and therefore, what I want to do is I want to save some of my income, so as to when in the future, when my income is below my expenses, because that's what happens, you go along and your income is above your expenses, and then time goes on, then your income drops, but your expenses stay there. And when that happens, the difference is a deficit, right? It makes a nice little pretty graph when you do that. And what happens is that part of your expenses are going to be covered, if you're covered under, most people are, covered under Social Security. So the idea being that, when you get to retirement, you got some of your income that you have lost being replaced by Social Security. Now, if your income throughout your life was no more than $10,000 in today's dollars, that was your average index monthly earnings, or, that's annualized $10,000, you're going to get a replacement of $9,000 of income for the rest of your life. That's the way Social Security works. First $10,000 replaced about 90%. Next 50,000 replaced about 32%. So it's a lot less, 32%. It's not replaced up at the 90% level. So you look at that and go, well, if you had more of a normal income, 40, 50, 60,000, whatever per year, a lot of that income is not going to be replaced by Social Security, and thereby we need savings. Then if your income is much higher, you might only have 15% replacement. Because if you're higher income, above that $60,000, 10 plus the 50, approximately, I'm rounding, then that is replaced at only 15%. So you look at that and go, wow, especially upper income people, they better be saving nicely for retirement, because Social Security is just not going to replace much of your retirement income. So what happens is that we look at retirement and we say, hey, let's maybe 40% of my income in retirement will be covered by Social Security, or 40% of the money I need for spending is covered by Social Security. The other 60% has to come from my own savings or a pension or something. Like pensions, they're kind of bygone. We don't see them anymore. So what do? Well, we can say, I'm going to put money in the 401k. So what I'm doing is I'm deferring income. I'm saying I don't need all of this income today. I'd like to spend it all, and a lot of people do, unfortunately, but I don't need it all today. So what I'm going to do is don't tax me on it today, because when I'm paying taxes, I'm paying at a higher marginal rate many times when I'm working than I will be at an average rate when I retire, because your first income is taxed at 0. Standard deduction, itemized deductions. Some of your income may be taxed at 10%, some of it 12%, and then some at 22% and 24%. And increasingly, the tax brackets get higher and higher. But your first income that you earn is always at those lower brackets, 0, 10, 12%. Then what you do is you say, well, in the future, in the future, when I'm not working anymore, I don't have any work income. So I'm going to have some income I'm able to take at 0%. Some I'm able to take at 10%, some at 12%. Well, let's say that you were in a 22 or 24% tax bracket early on in your career. Then you get to retirement and you got 0, 10, and 12. Well, if I was able to avoid 24%, let's say, for argument's sake, when I was working and take it at a lower rate, that's tax leverage. And that can be very, very beneficial. So that's pre-tax. Those are pre-tax retirement plans. Now, let's say that my tax rate's very, very low right now, 10% or super, super low. Or like, kids. You might have kids that they're earning tiny, tiny bits of income, because they work for your family business and you pay them just a small amount of money to take out the trash or whatever, or, pose in pictures for the business or whatever. There are all these things that you see businesses do and pay their kids. And their tax rate's 0. Well, they have only one place to go, is up. So then what you do is you balance those two. And that's part of the financial planning process, is balancing those two. What am I at here, marginal rate, versus what I'm likely to be at in the future, average rate. And then what happens is you make the determination how much to do pre-tax, how much to do post-tax, and sometimes you use non-qualified plans, taxable plans because they're taxed at capital gains rates, those types of things. But in essence, that's what the 401k allows. And then also you'll have a lot of times matches. So the employer will set up a program and they want to put money for themselves. They want to put money themselves away. And a lot of companies have moved to what are called like safe harbor plans. So a safe harbor plan will be that you've got to have a match. Maybe they match you 100% up to the first 3%. And then 50% of the next 2. So if you put 3% plus the next 2, which is 5%, they will match the first 3 100%. So you get 3% there, and then half of the next 2, that is total 4%, is what they're putting aside for you. All right. I am back here on the Investor Coaching Show. Paul Winkler, talking money and investing. So with the 401k, just kind of continuing on that vein, how they work. You got a 401k at your employer and you're wondering, how does this thing actually operate? And quite often you might have pre-tax, which is you're deferring income to the future, and you have post-tax Roth IRA features. Which one you use really depends a lot on your situation. Tax-wise, what you're likely to be dealing with, if you're going to have an inheritance in the future, those types of things. But if we're looking at this whole idea of, that I'm trying to defer this income into the future, and I want to hopefully, maybe be in a lower bracket in the future, I'm putting aside this money, that is why we have 401k plans. So let's look at these matches a little bit more in depth. So with these matches, what you're dealing with, an employer match, and sometimes it can be discretionary, where they will change it based on how the company's doing. Sometimes they have profit sharing matches. Might be that they'll do it that way. Sometimes they are like this safe harbor type of a concept where they match and they do 100% match up to 4%. So you put 4% of your pay away, then they will put 4% in. So if you make $40,000, so 4% of $40,000, $1,600. And then the company puts in another $1,600. So they're putting away $3,200 on your behalf if you just do 4%. Now, if you go above 4%, you're not going to get a match on that. And sometimes people say, do I go above that? Well, yes, maybe no. Sometimes people will go, I'm going to set up an IRA off to the side so I can choose my own investments rather than just the investments that my employer has. And sometimes they'll do that. Sometimes they'll go, well, my income's too high and I want to put more away than I can put in, than what's just 4% of my pay plus what I can put in an IRA. So they may use the 401k for all their savings in that particular instance. It just depends on a person's situation. It really does. Hate to say it just depends, but it just depends. So this is a planning consideration, but I just want you to get how this works. You might have the other type of safe harbor, is 100% up to 3, 50% the next 2. Safe harbor, the idea behind it was that the employer wants to put money away for their own retirement. And they're wanting to put money away, but if you don't contribute, the rank and file employee doesn't contribute to the 401k plan, they can't contribute. So you have people that, they put money in the 401k and then all of a sudden they get their money back, the upper income employee, the highly compensated people, HCEs, as we call them, highly compensated employees, they get their money back and they go, well, why am I getting my money back? I put it in the 401k. Well, because enough other people didn't contribute to the plan. We did testing and the plan's top heavy. You can't do it. And they're like, ugh. So you would have these safe harbor plans, and that would allow them to do it without any risk of getting the money kicked back toward them. So that's how those types of plans work. Now, what happens is that you'll have this, and you might have a vesting schedule with other types of plans. With these safe harbor plans, there's no vesting. So if they put a match in on your behalf and you leave the employer, you leave the employment, you take the money you put aside, and you can leave it there in the 401k. You can roll it to an IRA. You can do those types of things. Sometimes they just kick you out. And if you have less than $5,000, they may just kick you out of the plan. If you have more money, sometimes they actually like to keep you in the plan, because you're helping pay the defer or offset some of the expenses for the employees. But the 401ks, that's why they're so popular.